Who rules the roost when it comes to blockbuster box office takings? Superheroes? Spectacular disasters? Or maybe even minions? Wonder no longer with our awesome list of the top 10 highest grossing movies of the last 25 years. Hi, I'm Peter, and you're watching Ossa'm. Number 10. Our top 10 opens with the third installment of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. The team at Warner Brothers spent about $230 million on the budget for The Dark Knight Rises, and it turns out that was money well spent, as it went on to gross $1.085 billion at the box office. By comparison, the first installment, Batman Begins, only grossed around a third of that at $372 million in worldwide takings. However, even that smaller sum was more than the last 3 Batman films put together. Anyhow, the Dark Knight trilogy was a huge success, bringing the studio over $1 billion in pure revenue. So how did this incarnation of the Caped Crusader succeed where others had failed? Well, many critics think that Nolan's reboot realism was so groundbreaking that it set a whole new standard for what we consider to be a comic book film, making the leap from teenage fantasy to 4-quarter dominance. In case you're too young to remember, the last film before Christian Bale's Batman saw George Clooney running around in a batsuit bedecked with nipples. Batman Forever was a total disaster, which Clooney himself confessed, saying, "I think we might have killed the franchise." DC Comics fans were devastated for nearly a decade, and then Christopher Nolan changed the game, adding what many consider to be a deeper, frightening, and more mature aspect to the genre as a whole. Not only was the direction of these films great, Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker in 2008 turned a previously cartoonish theatrical villain into something mesmerizing, a terrifying but psychotically fascinating personality that just dared us to try and look away. And Bale totally transformed all prior expectations for what Batman can be by making his struggles more morally complex. This effort to capture Bruce Wayne's tortured alter ego totally paid off, as Bale ended up receiving a paycheck totaling $54 million for all 3 installments. Nolan's trilogy was even praised in papers like The Guardian as our generation's godfather, emphasizing the franchise's historic impact. Number 9. Next, we have a movie from DC's historic main rival that may be more recent than you might expect. It's Marvel's Spider-Man Far From Home. It's still playing in some theaters, so there's even a chance that this one could rank even higher. But for now, Tom Holland and his gang of summer school trip classmates have managed to net $1.111 billion at the box office. Spider-Man Far From Home has gone on to become the most commercially successful Spider-Man movie ever, even beating Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, which many consider to be the catalyst for the modern superhero movie genre. And the less said about Webb's forgettable Spider-Man duology, the better. Tom Holland is certainly one of a kind, and his personality definitely helped to make this particular Spider-Man reboot a success. But Holland doesn't carry the glory for this huge gross on his shoulders alone. Far From Home serves as a kind of epilogue to every Avengers film so far, and kind of gave us a bookend to the whole Phase 3 of the Marvel Universe. So every self-respecting Marvel fan simply had to see what happened to the world since all those who blipped out came back. But what if you're more of a casual moviegoer who hasn't devoted a decade of their life to keeping up with dozens of Marvel movies? Well, according to Jeff Bock, senior box office analyst at Exhibitor Relations, once Sony put Spider-Man back in the Marvel fold, it really turned things around for this franchise. People basically went to see another colourful movie, expecting a fun superhero story, and knowing that they'd get a base standard of quality due to the strength of the Marvel brand. But that raises serious questions about the future success of Spider-Man movies, with Sony going it alone now that they've split ways with Marvel. Find out more about the outcome of this monumental falling out in our special video, No More Spider-Man in the MCU? Click here to watch it next. Number 8. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is widely regarded as one of the greatest and most influential film trilogies ever made, modern or otherwise. Much like Nolan's Batman, the biggest sum came from the third installment, The Return of the King, which earned $1.12 billion at the box office, only just pipping Spider-Man to 8th place by $20 million. J.R.R. Tolkien's globally famous fantasy world, Peter Jackson's talented direction, and the relatable characters with very human flaws and victories all blended together to create the perfect archetypal story of good versus evil, and deservingly grossed a combined $2.919 billion at the box office for all 3 parts. While that might sound like quite a lot, it's not quite the total sum of the one movie finalist at the end of our list, but we'll find out a bit more about that later. Number 7. Can you guess which film franchise beat out the work of genius Peter Jackson by almost $40 million to make it to number 7 on our list? Prepared to be surprised, shocked even, but maybe not very pleased to find out. It's the Minions! Yep, those little yellow meme monsters bagged $1.159 billion in box office takings. So how'd they do it? Was it down to some genius direction? Nope. How about a riveting story full of twists and turns? Not really. They just have minions. These tiny henchmen captured the hearts of millions of fans since they first appeared in the animated comedy Despicable Me. So what's their billion-dollar secret? Aside from infectious humor, it turns out Minions are very memeable, gifable, and lovable in bite-sized portions. Minions don't need a comprehensive personality to be accepted by the viewer, and they don't fall prey to the uncanny valley either. Big eyes, nonsense voices, universal gags, all it takes is like 4 seconds of silliness to basically please many, which is probably the reason for their universal appeal. Because of this design and marketing genius, it becomes very easy to see why Minions are an easy sell, and just like that, the yellow creatures in the goggles are now absolutely everywhere. Number 6. $1.215 billion. That's what Marvel's standalone movie with their most beloved character grossed at the box office. Iron Man 3 earned almost double the first part's takings, as Tony Stark's world and personality gained an ever-increasing popularity with audiences over the years. And the main star, Robert Downey Jr., earned one hell of a paycheck for the trilogy. Starting at $2.15 million for the first Iron Man, following the franchise's commercial success, Downey reportedly got a bit of a pay bump, so his total pay for the second installment in the Iron Man saga is believed to be around $13 million. And after his third Iron Man story, the actor's estimated earnings saw him banking up to $32 million. However, nowadays, that's less than half of RDJ's typical paycheck, especially when comparing it with at least $75 million for Avengers Endgame, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Give him a couple more years and Robert Downey Jr. could likely earn as much in real life as his fictional counterpart in the MCU. Number 5. Slap bang in the middle, we have the most recent version of The Lion King, which is also still currently playing in theaters and has already managed to accrue $1.466 billion worldwide. So it's likely that, in time, this remake might place even higher on our list. Photorealistic lions, impressive African landscapes, and an updated soundtrack certainly makes this experience pretty entertaining, but you have to admit that an awful lot of this success is built directly on the work of the 1994 animated original. The story is exactly the same, and nostalgia is no doubt a huge factor. You might say that the vocal performances are spot on, but few of those actors are bringing anything original to the table. So essentially what we have here is a movie that's earned its billions thanks to heavy marketing, heavy nostalgia, and the savvy decision to cast Beyoncé. With a production budget of $250 million, you'd think this experience would be a bit more transcendental than a special effects showcase and a couple of cute songs. Anyway, the commercial success of The Lion King will undoubtedly spawn a new wave of stylistic imitators for sure, with a musicless Mulan already in the works. Let's see if this bubble bursts after the uncanny and distressing trailers for the upcoming film adaptation of the musical Cats. Will we get more substance than style, or just an unchanged narrative with a few more CGI bells and whistles? Well, we'll get to find out pretty soon. Number 4. Star Wars. I bet you were sure that this saga would be near the top of our list. But which installment do you think managed to bag the highest spot, bringing in $2.068 billion at the box office? And the winner is the 2015 hit Star Wars: The Force Awakens. The film surpassed 2017's The Last Jedi by an entire $736 million. Leaving behind the fact that the saga has a huge global fan base and is simply a fun romp to watch, let's think of any other reasons why The Force Awakens could become such a huge commercial success. Well, the film takes you back to a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And after 10 years away from the silver screen, it's an absolute delight to revisit the Star Wars universe. But unlike the latest Lion King, nostalgia isn't all the film gives us. This installment gives a whole new generation the chance to witness the rebirth of the Star Wars cinematic universe. So while nostalgia does play an important role here, there's novelty at work as well. Despite a couple of plot holes and nitpicks, The Force Awakens managed to keep up necessary tension with much needed drama and interesting variations on a tried and tested plot formula that also pleased fans by adding a touch of humour long absent from the franchise. By adding new aspects to the franchise, but balancing this against the original atmosphere, The Force Awakens is probably worthy of its billions. Number 3. What would happen if you took Romeo and Juliet and put them on a sinking ship? Ask James Cameron to helm the tale of a universally famous tragic disaster and bam! You have $2.187 billion worth of love story. Titanic held the record for the highest gross at the box office for 12 years. And even now, Titanic is and has always been in the top 3 since it first hit screens and icebergs in 1997. Nobody believed that the movie would bring anything near that kind of profit, especially when Cameron went over his already humongous budget of $100 million by almost double again, spending $200 million in total on what could very well have been a disaster, and not the kind the studios wanted to see. Even Cameron thought he was headed for choppy waters. We laboured the last 6 months on Titanic in the absolute knowledge that the studio would lose $100 million, he recalls. It was a certainty. Instead, Titanic went on to become a massive success. So let's figure out why exactly Titanic managed to steer its way straight into audiences' hearts. Well, we have to admit it, Titanic looked spectacular from start to finish. And back then, the film crew had to build nearly everything from scratch, rather than our modern over-reliance on CGI. Then, of course, there's the emotional appeal. Even if Jack and Rose's ill-fated love story left you cold, then Titanic still featured plenty of little moments that left even the toughest of men a blubbering mess. Like, remember the old couple lying in bed quietly waiting to die together? Or the mother comforting her kids as the ship goes down? Or the band playing on for one last song in the certain knowledge that it would be their doom? All relatable snapshots into a real-life disaster. One more thing, Titanic ensured that it offered something for everyone. Weepy romance? Check. A spectacular disaster? Check. Plus, Titanic is a very extravagant period drama, so it offers a lot of fun for those who like to indulge in the atmosphere of a more civilized age and spot the details that made it so damn classy. Throughout its 195-minute runtime, everyone is kept pretty much entertained. Number 2. Titanic surely taught James Cameron the knack of earning huge amounts of money, as with his next masterpiece, Cameron went on to set a brand new record for box office gross. 4 years in the making, the ridiculously ambitious $230 million budgeted 3D sci-fi adventure epic Avatar didn't just bring in $2.79 billion at the box office, but also became the kind of event film Hollywood hadn't experienced for decades. The groundbreaking CGI and 3D had practically everyone talking about the film. So much so that you had to see it just to, be part of the cultural zeitgeist. Just like Titanic, this movie has something for everyone. Action, sci-fi, romance, and even commentary on social issues that, while a bit ham-handed, still left a meaningful impact. Not bad for Dances with Wolves meet Giant Blue Cat People. All of that led to a huge mass audience appeal and made Avatar the highest grossing film of all time. Well, that is until another movie beat its record. Number 1. It's not even a secret anymore, right? You know for sure which film is at the top of our list. Avengers Endgame managed to earn $2.796 billion and still hasn't reached its limit since the film returned to screens for a second outing. I wouldn't be surprised if this movie sets another new record, crossing the $3 billion mark at the box office. It may seem crazy, especially if you remember the days of leather-clad X-Men creakily reviving the genre 20 years ago. But Avengers Endgame is universally popular for good reason. Audiences and critics are both super pleased. According to Rotten Tomatoes, the film has a 94% stamp of approval. And most fans have stayed along for the ride despite those countless mistakes and plot holes and the tragic deaths of their favourite characters. Endgame is also the culmination of 22 movies released over 11 years, so it kind of marks the end of an era. And I don't just mean as part of Marvel's Phase 3, but for cinema as a whole. Endgame, like the rest of the Marvel films, is filled with awesome humour and captures the hearts of viewers right away. It's dramatically effective, and yes, don't forget, it paved the way for superheroes to become the hottest cinematic trend. So what's your personal favourite in the top 10? Share with us in the comments below. And as always, thanks for staying awesome.